Hello, guys. Welcome back to another episode on the Omni Channel podcast. And I'm in my bed currently. Where else would I be? I guess that's my favorite hangout spot and slash office. I do have to say I developed quite a routine around my bedtime work because I cannot get myself to sit at a table. Anyway, so today I want to talk about approach and I'm launching a program called Art of the Approach in February 1st, 2026. And I don't even know where do I begin because there's just so much that came through in the past year that accumulated into the Art of the Approach being birthed and a bigger body of work that has been crystallizing through me, and I found myself overthinking how this whole thing is going to be explained to people because every time I was thinking about how do I explain this work, it became this ego frame every time. So I'll tell you the phases of ego that I went through when it comes to this launch, and then where have I arrived at the end. And I'm so glad that I let the work crystallize as it was, because boy oh boy, it was a process. So I just wanted to share that with you. Perhaps you guys, I'm not sure I'm the only one, but perhaps you guys are also in a phase of just wanting to launch something and thinking, how can I make it sexy and how can I make it sound really good? Like how can I communicate in a way that people get it? And to me, it's the point is to remove all the layers of ego and just keep the intention as pure as it was at the beginning. The foundational core and the conversation that really birthed the Art of the Approach was an amalgamation of a lot of things. First of all, it was a conversation with Parmise. She's an entrepreneur. We have been collaborating and friend as well. We've been friends for a while now. And for many reasons, our brains, we have really good chemistry in terms of thinking together and sparring. And I remember thinking about and just bringing a topic to her around November and talking hey, Parmise, she's someone I consider quote unquote high caliber, and it's not just status, it's a way of thinking, it's a way of relating, it's a way of seeing the world. That to me is what defines high caliber. It's just a way, she has her standards and whatever. And so I kind of told her hey, I'm thinking about recording an episode on approaching people, and I don't like how people have been doing this or teaching this, and I don't resonate with that too much. And how about you and I, we do an episode on approaching high caliber people? Would you be down? And she said, you know what, yes, let's do it. And then also she kind of said, well, let's do it. And then also talk about in terms of females, because of her dating life currently, how about we also include high caliber females so men know how to talk to them. And I'm yeah, that's a good idea. I guess we can do part 1, part 2. But as things progressed and things moved, I was so ready to talk about it, but she was so busy that we just couldn't make it happen. And so she said, you know what, I can't, this month, let's do next month, whatever. And at that point, I said, you know what, I couldn't hold back. It was too alive in me to not talk about it. And so I started to talk about it. So you know what, it's fine. You don't have to come in here and talk about it anymore. We are good. But at the same time, what has also happened was I realized that, teaching how to approach high caliber people, to me, there's just something about that didn't feel good in my body, because then that signal that is just because of your perceived high caliber is when you deserve an approach that is not a basic cold DM, for example. And that didn't sit right with me, because I also thought to myself, okay, I don't want this work to be misunderstood by people, because I don't want them to think oh, okay, let me just learn from Domi. How can I get to high caliber people? And how can I do that? And no, that's not what I want. That's not my intention. And as I was contemplating about this, and I'm so glad that we didn't go ahead and record it at the time, because even though my definition of what's a high caliber is, and her definition, like our definition is different, it could have easily been misunderstood by most people who kind of chase the high status, whatever category of people. It could have easily been twisted and turned into something like manipulation, or like tell us what to say, or, So that didn't feel right with me. And I'm so glad we didn't do it. I'm so glad that kind of never been done. But then I started talking about my own evolution with approach. And I remember just being immersed in how people approach other people, and just like being observant of the fact that how that happens. And also just looking at my own life on how I'm being approached all the time. Especially like we are talking about approach in terms of business, right? That's kind of our context here. And I thought about that a lot. I thought about what I like, what I don't like. And there was a part of me that was really, really upset because of some approaches I heard from other people that were like stealing a phone number of someone and then calling them, and being proud of that approach, and that, like, holy fucking shit, like, that's terrible. And I remember just filming an entire video about that, where all I did was to bash the type of people that do that. And even though it just feels so wrong to me, the compassion element was missing out of my body. Like, it wasn't at that compassion level to talk about this, because I had just way too much anger for the type of people who do that, Instead of understanding that maybe it's not ignorance, it's just that they don't know how to do this better, And then this became my own reflection on, like, okay, wait a minute. So when was a time where I didn't know any better? And then I remembered that my first job was to work at a cold calling job. Actually, I had 2 jobs that I worked, like one in inside sales and one as a cold caller campaign manager. In both scenarios, I was cold calling people. In one scenario, I was cold calling people in the tech industry. The other one, I was cold calling people in the healthcare industry. And I hated both of those jobs, and I didn't last a long time. And I found all these ways to kind of pivot into emailing them more instead of calling them, and trying different ways. And I did manage to get around it, circumvent it, by finding different means to reach out to these people, which was my winning strategy, because I just couldn't get myself to lift up the phone and call people, because I knew that I wouldn't like that either, So it just felt like, I don't know, I just didn't like it. I know I don't like to be called. I know I don't like that approach. And so doing that to other people didn't feel right for me. And I remember just not knowing any better, just that's the job and this is the script, and even that didn't feel good, but I did it anyway. So you could argue that, oh well, it's what gets you paid. I remember there was a specific time where I called someone in the UK, and this is a very smart entrepreneur, and he told me, like, please tell me at least one good reason why should I listen to you. And I told him, you know what, I don't have any. Goodbye. And that was like, holy shit, this was a smart one. It was humbling. So I filmed a video about this very specific story in how I did this, how I used to do this too. But I couldn't shed the judgment of the people who do this. I still felt like, don't do this to people. Like, please don't call people randomly, and please. And no one can call me at this point. My phone is on Do Not Disturb always. There's only one phone call that comes through. That's my partner, and he knows not to call me, and he knows better. He knows my schedule. He knows, like, when not to bother me. But yeah, it's like, if phone calls never worked on me, I don't know why we do this to people. And I think just thinking about the story itself, like, just not be judgy of the industry, because here's the thing, and it's interesting to me, and here's what I want to kind of create that separation, because I do believe that I know phone call people. Like, I know people who are like, hey, this would be easier for me if can I just call you? Like, that would be so much better for me, because, like, we could just, like, this is done. And I even have a client who's a phone call client who Literally, like, I would sit in a meeting with him and he would get like 100 phone calls. And because that's easier, like, I understand for people, like, it's easier to get it done on a phone call. I think it's just in terms of approach, unless you are like a very smooth talker. And this is a context in which you have agreement from the person that you're going to call. It's a different story. But what we are talking about is like cold calling, the type of job that I was paid to do, right? And so, like I said, there was a time when I was doing the same thing and I didn't like it, but that was the job, right? So with that understanding, my judgment in terms of the people who do this kind of went down a little bit. It's not completely gone, but it has been mitigated to an acceptable level in which I can conjure compassion for people. So definitely that's something that has helped a lot to think about that. But also I remember like I've never done like DMs in cold outreach. I did have like a software that I used on my Facebook that like sent automated messages, and it was like adding people and then sending them a message, like an automated message. And it could be like inside of a group and inside of certain groups, and then you can just put personalization and it would send automatic DMs to people. And you could customize what the first message would be, and you can just like share commonalities, like, hey, I think we're both in the same group. How's business? Like some shit like that. And I did get some responses, but I was so overwhelmed by the responses of people, and I just like, okay, no, this is not gonna work. Like either I really, really, really sit down and be present with the people, or I don't. I cannot just be pinging people and then disappearing on them. I don't like when people do that to me. If anyone ever is like messaging me like, hey, how's it going? Even if this is a friend who's messaging me like, hey, how's everything? I would still be like, this is how, and then they would not respond. I'm like, where have you gone? Like, I thought you care. Like, if you don't care, like, why bother to even message me? Like, to me, that's kind of like common sense, but I don't get why people do that. So if you ever like message me like with a question and you respond, then you don't respond, like, I'm like, okay, well then, So that was like a second layer of like, I need to shed this one. Like I used to do this too. Like I used to cold DM. I used to do this too. I used to cold call. Yeah, so all of that is done. But what has remained, and then now we are shedding the status as well, like high caliber bullshit status. Like we're shedding that as well. We don't care. We care about everyone equally because they're humans and they deserve respect. And that was the amazing reason why we haven't done the recording. Not only because it could have been misunderstood, but also because I care about my impact on people. And I think that's something that people misunderstand. So let me go on a little bit of a tangent here, and I had to change and switch positions because I think I was touching the cable weird, and all the details you guys don't want to know. Anyway, so if you guys can hear me better, it's because I think I was holding something incorrectly. Now you can hear me better, probably. I think most people, they don't see, sense, or understand their own impact, okay? The analogy that I like to give every time I explain this is that imagine if you're an elephant and you're walking into a porcelain store, and imagine that being something you do, and you're knocking the porcelain and you're breaking stuff as you're walking in the store, but you're thinking you're a tiny mouse. That's when we are not cognizant of our impact, And it's not even because this was also something I needed to shed, because this idea that you don't care who is on the other side, like humans are just numbers and it's easy to get desensitized, like having the CRM systems, like everyone is just a number, just a name, just a contact with data. That's just data sizing people, and it's easy to get people reduced to that. But I think beyond that, and if you don't assume people, just look at people as data, and that's like the very objectifying way of thinking and considering people. But we are also thinking about how some people, they just don't sense their own impact, so they don't understand if they reach out to someone in some way that is impacting them, that there isn't anyone on the other line who rolls their eyes and be like, another one. Or there isn't anyone who gets like flattened by a DM that is literally nothing to do with who they are and what they do. And they're like, okay, nope. Or like when you see your phone blowing up with all the messages, inquiries, your emails, and it's just like you look at your emails and like, okay, I need to hire a VA to kind of sort this out because every time I check my inbox, it gives me anxiety. True story. My client actually has a VA who's specifically doing that job to sort his emails because he cannot be bothered with that. I think that's the thing, right? I think in the industry, like I don't want to bash the industry. I'm trying not to bash, and that's also something I did as a mistake. Is to bash the industry, is to say, you know what, people do this and do that, and whatever they do to make things work, like that's their thing. I can only just speak for myself and what I like and what I don't like, and how I like to be approached, and what are the things that make me say yes, and what are the things that make me say no, and what are the things that make me go, oh my God, and what are the things that made me go, oh, that's interesting. And one of the things that made me go, oh my God, finally a human that's nice and not transactional, only to then, oh my God, I thought we were friends. We're not. Okay, this was just all about that. Okay, right? And I think we all have those experiences to some degree. And I think it's not for me to tell you to do this way or that way, or this is wrong or this is bad. It's for me to invite you to think about what feels good for you if you were on the receiving end of it. Okay, that's pizza. If you guys hear like the ringing thing, the pizza order is here. Actually, it was kebab. So kebab is here. So let's just hope my partner won't barge in. I texted him not to come inside of the room. Like, let's just hope that's not happening. But I think it's not for me to judge people over this one. It's for me to invite you to think about what feels good to you. And what feels good to you, and how would you like to be approached if it was you on the receiving end of it, and what would make you say yes. That's it. And what I have learned, and what I am planning to teach inside of this program, essentially, is to be very, very cognizant on how we approach people, not just what we say, but really who we are when we are doing it, and understand all of that goes behind that, clear that out, and then approach in a way that is actually well received. Not because you want to get people to do something, but because you understand that the way you approach people speaks more about who you are and how you relate to others. So not only being cognizant of the impact that you leave, but also because it's your own standards against yourself, and you just cannot let yourself not do the way that feels good to you. And that is essentially what I like to teach to people. It's not about scripting. It's not about how do we get to do this? How do we get people to insert whatever outcome? It's about raising awareness on what works for me, what has been working for me, and how I see this, and how I want the industry to be changing, and how I want to set a standard on how do we do this well. Not because we want better outcomes, not because we want to be the, oh my God, like create memorability. I think that's also some ego bullshit. Like people like, well, how do you stand out? Well, I don't try to stand out. I'm just holding myself into my own standards. And if that stands out for you, that's great. My intention is to just be holding myself to my own standards to the point where it respects the other person. And even before there is any business transaction, guys, and this is where I think, I'm trying not to fall into judgment, but this is where I think people get it wrong. But like the way you approach people says a lot about you, even before any business transaction happens. The way you treat other people says a lot about you, even before any exchange happened. And I think that's when I see people outsourcing appointment setting or quote unquote prospecting. It's sometimes a fatal error because it's hard to get people who care so much about the business as you. Okay, guys, so Art of Approach starts February 1st, 2026. I'm teaching this the first time, and thank God it's not about money for me. It's all about giving whatever that is that I have learned this past year and the years before, and everything that I've done I didn't like, and everything that I've been experiencing I didn't like, and everything that I did like, and help you guys understand how to approach people in a way that feels good for them too, and feels good for you. Everyone involved is very happy, and that's the goal. That's the goal of the program. Okay? So, and it's just, I don't want to be like over talking because I am so proud of this in so many ways. So you guys can come. It's not priced very high. As of now, it stands on $47. As of now, I will be adding more modules to it as things crystallize. But even now, I'll try to make it justice. And I'm sure it will evolve. Because even between the first idea that I had, like you guys just heard the whole story, like it evolved, and now I feel like we arrived to like ego death times 10, really, truly. So now it has just became, it is what it is. It's clean, no ego, no high caliber people, no how to get people, no none of that, no braggy things, no none of that. It's all gone. So let's do this well, okay? So I'm going to put a link in the description of this episode. You can check out the finer details if you want to. And yeah, I'll see you February 1st. Once you have secured your seat, you will be invited to a Facebook group where the program will take place. And you will have lifetime access to that group. And every time there's something new will come out, will be published there. And then I think that's all you need to know. Would love to see you there. If this is resonating with you, I beyond excited to be teaching this to humanity. So come if this resonates. Love to see you there. And then we start February 1st. And I think that's it. Thanks for listening to this one. And I'll see you guys very soon. Bye.